2 weeks ago, a national conference call was called to meet the continued threats, U.S. war threats against Iran, with the military exercises and especially with the assassinations of the nuclear scientists in Iran. We felt it was really important for people to come out in the streets and make their voice known to say that we don't want another war in Iran. We know that there are between 30 to 50 to maybe 100,000 people who were killed in the last U.S.-NATO war against Libya. And the countless children who were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we know this war has everything to do with the fact that Iran is the second largest oil reserves, that that the U.S. and the allies of the U.S. want to dominate the region of Asia and the Middle East. We know it has absolutely nothing to do with the concern for safety of the people here in the United States. Because if they were concerned about safety, then why are they cutting back health care? Why are they cutting back education? Why don't they provide us with a real jobs program? We know it has everything to do with the fact that it's a global economic crisis right now. It's harder and harder to make a profit because of overproduction. So they're desperate to make profits, and they'll go to by any means necessary, whether it's destroying whole civilizations, ethnicities. They don't care. Anything that gets in the way of their profits, they'll mow it down. So we know what this war is about.
So you said this is a international.
So the February 4th coalition, I guess, was formed. It's a national organization, but it also involves 6 different countries around the world are having demonstrations today. And 79 cities in the United States are having demonstrations, united around demands of no assassinations, no interventions, no war, and no sanctions. We feel the sanctions it's very important to stress the sanctions because it is an act of war, because it does target civilians. And we know about 500,000 children died from the Iraqi sanctions. And we know that the United Nations is being used. They used the United Nations and the Resolution 1973 for the no-fly zone to execute their war against Libya.
So you recently have visited Iran. Could you talk about your visit to Iran and what happened and what?
Yeah. So last summer, a group of anti-war coalitions from Canada and the United States went concerned about the war threats, the growing war threats by the United States, and they met and they were invited by 2 of the largest student groups in Iran. These are activists, some activists who were jailed by the Shah, some activists who some didn't support the government of Iran. But one thing that they all were agreed upon, and the international coalitions agreed upon, was the fact that the worst thing for Iran would be the U.S. intervention, for the U.S. to take the sovereignty away from Iran like they did in Libya and like they do in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's the worst thing that could happen in Iran. And the Iranian people can work out their own problems, whatever contradictions there are in the government, just like the many contradictions in this country. They don't want another country intervening and bombing their people.
So are you in support of the Iranian government, or are you doing this in support of the Iranian people?
We're in support of the Iranian people. And the Iranian people, and some of the Iranian people, when I went there, there is a fact that there is a group of opposition, but there also is a group of Iranians who support their government as well. I mean, and it's not hard to understand. After the revolution in 1979, they were able to use the oil reserves to increase the standard of living for health care, for education. So there are contradictions, but there's another picture, there's another side to it. We only see one side, but we have to allow the Iranian people to work out their own problems. Mossadegh, was democratically elected, and the United States came in, got rid of Mossadegh, put in the Shah, who gave the oil back to British Petroleum. Now, after the revolution, that oil was nationalized again, and that's the real crime of the Iranian government. In the eyes of the United States, that's the real crime. They don't care about the human rights in Saudi Arabia, and they don't care about, all they care about is the oil the oil remains in the hands of the U.S. corporations, our imperialist corporations. The big no-no was to nationalize that oil, just like in Venezuela. So that's why the U.S. wants to go to war against Iran, and we have to say no war against Iran.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.